Hello again and welcome to The Luxury Choice, a B2B sales skills and business podcast brought to you by the training team of George James Limited. My name is Steve Vaughan. I'm the host and the producer of this podcast, and I'm joined once again with my colleagues here, Jonathan Cooper and Prue Layton. And it's the first show of 2024. So we're all back after the Christmas period, trying to remember what it is that we do for a living, probably, and where we work and all those things that you do after Christmas. But guys, how was your Christmas period? Did you have a good time?
I would start with Prue, because hers was far more dramatic than mine. And far more interesting,
well, I'm
frankly.
Trying to get back into the world of work, Steve. I was lucky enough to have a really extended vacation over in New Zealand for a month.
Wow. You had a long time,
Arrived
didn't you?
back in the UK 3 days before Christmas, and then hosted a bit of a family Christmas dominated by 4 rescue dogs.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So we had good fun, but it's been a tough week this week getting back into work. But This is the highlight of my week. I enjoy this part of it.
Good. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
I've never been to New Zealand, Prue. I'd love to go. Would you recommend it?
I would recommend it. You know, I was really worried about the journey because it's a long way, but actually it was fine. No jet lag. We hit their summer, which was perfect.
Sure.
So it was light till 10 o'clock at night, which was just great. The best thing, to be honest. Those very long days.
Fantastic. It's on the bucket list for me, certainly. Jonathan, how about you?
Well, actually, despite, normally, of course, I've had many years of my children giving me some bugs over Christmas. This time it was my grandchildren. But it was a great Christmas because, of course, last year I'd broken my leg and I was actually in hospital over Christmas.
Oh, of course.
So, I managed to get through December the 11th. My children wrapped me in cotton wool so that, I remained safe and out of trouble. So, it was a really good time. Thanks, Steve. And, looking forward to, this year. It's a really exciting opportunity for us as a business.
We had a family Christmas as well. My grandson, our first grandchild, came on Boxing Day, obviously with his parents, and that was great. He's 6 months old, so it was all a little bit underwhelming, I guess, at his age. So I'm looking forward to this time next year because I can buy him a scale electric. Then he'll be 1.5. he'll be old enough then, won't he, for a racing car track?
Oh, absolutely, Steve.
Perhaps
He'll be able to watch you. He'll be able to watch you play with it, Steve. I think that's
exactly true. You read my mind.
Scale electrics, PS5, what they can use at 1 year old.
Absolutely, yeah. Can't wait. So it's a new year. It's a new calendar year. It might not be a new business year for people because not everybody runs a calendar fiscal year, but it's definitely a new calendar year. And some people are back at work. So we're recording this on the 5th of January. Some people are back at work now. Some people might not be back at work until Monday, which is the 8th. But what I think is, without dispute, really, is people are coming back to work now. We're getting back into work mode. And as salespeople, we're starting to get back into doing our stuff, seeing customers, making appointments and things. So what I thought would be good, really, for the show today, guys, would be, and I don't want to use the phrase New Year's resolutions particularly, but we can if we want. But from a planning point of view or from a goal-setting point of view, it's a great time to take a step back and say, right, this is what I want to achieve this year as a salesperson or as a sales leader. So what I would like us to think about really is, what kind of things could or should sales managers, sales leaders, salespeople be thinking about at this time of year in terms of setting themselves goals and targets? Obviously, they'll have those they've got from their companies, but in terms of personal goal setting, what kind of things could they be thinking about? So we'll just have a bit of a round robin. We'll go around until we run out of topics. We're going to run out of time or both. So I know you've got a list, Jonathan, because you just showed it me on the back of an envelope. And I've made a few notes as well, and I know you've made some notes as well. So let's start with you, Jonathan. So what would be your first thought as in terms of setting yourself a goal if you were a salesperson or a sales manager?
Yeah, I think it's a great theme, Steve, and I think you've come back from that break. I think it's very easy to end up in the real detail, right? It's really easy to end up in the depths of your inbox. And personally, I think if you can extricate yourself from that, take some time away from that in the first few days of this new calendar year, whether this is your Q1, whether this is, for instance, your Q4, I think is really powerful. So I think, where would I start? I'd probably, start at the top. And I think just make sure because for most people, December's a pretty hectic month. It's a short month, short trading month in many cases, or shorter. I think to step back and take a look from the top of your business, in terms of those key strategies, in terms of that direction, in terms of, how the business is setting out its stall to win. I think to refresh, the direction of your own company and make sure you've got a clear understanding of that is a great place to start. Because I think what follows that is then for us as individuals, if you're running a team and leading a team, or if you're an individual salesperson, I think to ensure that you are still broadly aligned with that strategic direction is that really, really important. Okay. Again, it's that break, it's that hectic trading month. We get right into some real detail, and then we give our brains a rest, or hopefully so, for a couple of weeks. So I think it's a really, really important thing to do. Knowing how you're going to win, over the course of this coming 12 months, particularly if it's the start of your financial year, your fiscal year, or even if it's just your Q4, Q1's just around the corner for you. So I think, getting broadly aligned is for me a really, really important element of that. And so go check your strategy, which is all about how you're going to win in your territory, or through your salespeople if you're a sales leader, etc. So I think for me, that's definitely a place I'd start from. I think a number of things can flow from that as well.
So right at the very top, what's the company strategy? How does that cascade down into my territory or my business area of responsibility?
Absolutely.
Are the things that I'm planning to do this year aligned with that? Okay.
Yeah, and I think once you've decided how you're going to win, start, I think your plan naturally falls out of that. But I think knowing how you're going to win, having that winning strategy is critical. So that's where I think that's where I'd start.
Okay, great. Yeah, so right at the top level, Prue, we're starting in terms of real high level strategy and alignment of strategy. So does that follow on to any of your points, or have you got anything that sort of dovetails with that? Or
I thought a bit more broadly, and I thought about it personally, Steve, in terms of New Year resolutions or things that I knew I should have done last year, but I didn't. And maybe this is a good time to do them this year. So I started to make a list of my bad habits. And when I got onto page 2, I then remembered, I think one of the habits, or the 7 habits of highly effective people, the Stephen Covey thing, still rings so true for me. And it's that idea, the biggest challenge in sales, I think, is you don't have enough time to do everything. You are never, ever going to finish everything that you need to do for the rest of your working life. So it's all about the things that you do. I think of that quadrant of Stephen Covey about where the most effective people work. I know, and I encourage people to work on things that are important and not yet urgent.
Absolutely.
Okay. I know that one of my bad habits is that I work on things that are important, but probably a bit urgent. So
you hide it well.
My resolution, and I think it probably reflects for many people, is to be better at working on the things that are important, but not yet urgent. Because work in sector 2 of Stephen Covey's quadrant, where I can do my best work, where I've got time to do it well, when I can reflect on it. So I think that's a habit or a resolution I would like to challenge myself again with this year. Am I really working at the right time and not leaving things up to deadlines and pretending to myself that I do my best work with a hard deadline?
I love that. And I can so relate to that, thinking all those years ago when I was a student and doing my finals, and how I procrastinated over the revision and then crammed it all in at the last minute. And then, as you say, convinced myself that's how I revised best, but probably it wasn't really. So I think it's a great thing to set yourself. But I guess the challenge always is there's always stuff to do, isn't it, really? And how do we, and then, thinking about the listener on the podcast now, and as you say, Jonathan, those overflowing inboxes they've probably got because they've been out of office for a few weeks or a few days at least. How do you find that time to sort of take a step back and work on things that are important but not yet urgent, really? I guess it's a real challenge, but recognizing it, I guess, is the first point, really.
I've definitely got better at important. I'm definitely better at selecting the priorities that are important, that have an impact.
Right.
So, move on to the next thing, Prue. Come on. I can do important now. Let's just get a bit more disciplined in scheduling my time more effectively and not being distracted. So that's one of my resolutions.
Great point. And that kind of feeds into my first one, really, in many ways, which is planning perspective and what is it I want to do in terms of my personal setting, because we all have to sell, don't we? Where do I want to focus my activity? I want to spend a bit of time, and I'm going to do it on Monday, and I've set myself a task, and it's going to be important, but not yet urgent, yet Prue. I want to look back at what I did last year, because this time last year I did set myself some goals in terms of where I thought my business is going to come from. But I want to look back, and Outlook's great for this. I want to look back at what I did. I don't know about you, but I use a lot of color coding in Outlook in terms of my different type of activities, whether it's training, prospecting, podcasts, whatever. And I really want to look back, particularly over this period last year, and say, well, did I do in the first 3 months of 2023 what I'd planned to do? And if not, what stopped me doing it, really? And I don't know if I'll learn anything from that or not, really, but I think it just might be a good way of understanding, as I set myself my goals for this year, am I being realistic? Are they SMART goals, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, timely? Or am I coming up with a wish list almost, really? I don't know if that would work, but I'm going to give it a go anyway as a look back for the start of this month.
I think it's a great idea, Steve, and I think it's almost like a self-audit in a way. I know for sure I don't take enough time to reflect. When I do, I normally learn something, right? It helps me identify for sure, those things I could have done better, those things I should definitely keep doing. But I think also that reflection as well helps you understand where you probably invested time, which didn't actually lead to an outcome or lead to any significant return for you and all the business, or dare I say it, even your customers as well. So really important to reflect. I love that idea. And I just think it's applicable as well. And maybe, I could move on to number 4, Steve, because it leads beautifully from what you've said there.
Yeah, please do.
It's that self-audit. It's checking that what you say you're going to do, you actually do. And Outlook you're right, is a great tool for that. So if you've committed to doing X, Y, and Z, if you look back over a quarter, you can actually realistically see, if you've recorded, of course, all events, which you should do. Actually, that's something I'm not bad at doing. It really helps me see whether or not I've achieved what I set out to achieve, or did I get distracted, or did I end up doing something else that actually I never said that I would do. And it's very easy for that to happen, of course. So it does require some discipline,
absolutely,
of course. But I love that idea. Yeah. It's so good. And I relate it in you're looking at filling a gap, between your target and your actual. You should commit to some actions. And it's easy to say, yes, I'm going to do, A, B, and C. But actually, have you done A, B, and C? Did you do A, B, and C? By reflecting, looking at your calendar, you can actually see that for real. So, yeah, love that idea. Love it. Yeah. So maybe there's number 4.
Good. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. Well, let's keep going. Prue, number 5.
So the other thing it prompted me to think about, Steve, was New Year's resolutions, or resolutions that I had that really worked, that really had an impact. What turned out to be my final year in direct sales before I became a manager, I looked at my territory, I looked at my target, I looked at all the challenges. I complained about the fact that the product we were supposed to get hadn't yet been released, the normal things that we all have. And I thought, I can't impact product, but I can impact about where I go. I made a list of all the customers I didn't like going to see, which may sound a bit weird, but there were some lovely customers that I really enjoyed going to see. They were very easy to get appointments with. I had a very nice time. But I recognised that it was the same for all my competitors. They also saw the same people who were nice and friendly and open. So I made this list of people that I thought, I really ought to go and see them, but I found a reason not to. and I recognised it wasn't me, it was those customers are the same with other people, They're just maybe a little socially awkward or a little uncomfortable or challenging to get an appointment with. And I made them my target for that year. As it turned out, best year I ever had. And why was it? It's because I got a competitive edge almost by default by really focusing on those kind of customer group. The other competitors didn't go and see them either. And I had a great year, as it turned out. So it was one of my best ever resolutions.
Fantastic.
I don't know where it came from, but it really worked.
And were they difficult to see because they were just difficult people, or were they super busy, or a mix of all those things?
There was a whole combination, to be honest. Some of them were just, when you got to see them, you couldn't get out. You know,
right.
Some of them were maybe socially awkward, so the conversations always felt difficult and not that warm, so you didn't really want to go and do them. So that was another group. There were some who would just be difficult to pin down and would keep rebooking calls, and then you sort of gave up with them. But I recognised it was a habit that they had and it wasn't me. So if they were like that with me, they were like that with everybody.
Absolutely.
So if I made an extra effort, I was already a step ahead. I have to say some of them perhaps were less friendly with their showers than they could have been. That could have been another reason. But, you know, it was a great strategy, you know, to get ahead. I wish I'd had the real wisdom. I was just desperate to do something different.
Oh, I love it. I think it's a great point. It's a great point. And it kind of feeds into my next one, really, which is, and you know, guys, you've probably got one of these on your desk somewhere. I've got something called a too hard pile. It's a pile of work that I know it's hard. I picked this up actually from a colleague a number of years ago who was an office manager, and he had some great phrases, and he said, "Oh, it's on the too hard pile, Steve," which meant it was something that he knew he had to do, but he put off doing it. And I guess what I've kind of learned really is often, and it really fits in with what you said, Prue, often the things that we really need to do the most are the things that we put off, really. So at this time of year, it might be, dare I say, prospecting, making appointments, trying to get to see people that are not easy to get to see, as you say, Prue, doing that CRM update that you should have done before Christmas. As you've said before, Jonathan, thinking about your strategy. It's very easy for us all to dive into our inbox, isn't it? Because it's there waiting for us right now. It's a place where we can go and be, inverted commas, busy, but not necessarily productive, really. And I can think back to times in my corporate life where, you know, I've hosted offices where people, all they seem to do was read emails all day. That was their job. From my perspective, I want to really recognize that things that I put on the too hard pile are the things that I probably need to start doing at the start of the day. And once I've done those too hard things, actually what will come out of that will be some opportunities, some good stuff to work on that will no longer be too hard. It might actually be enjoyable, fun, and guess what? Successful and productive as well, really. So yeah, it was recognizing that I have something called a too hard pile and dealing with it. It's kind of my next one, really.
Well,
it's funny how they're all kind of linking together, guys, aren't they, as we work through? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, on our team call next Friday, then, Steve, I'm going to be asking what's on your too hard pile.
It'll be gone by then.
It'll be gone. Good. Great. Okay. There's definitely something I'd pick up from what Prue said, I think, around, you know, people sometimes that, I don't know, I've done it as a salesperson in the past. I've convinced myself that there was somebody in the decision-making unit for a specific sale that, you know, maybe there was just a lack of chemistry, or somebody had told me something about them that wasn't so particularly positive, or made a comment about them that kind of scared me. And I found myself I convinced myself that actually, I don't need to see them. They're no part of the sale. I managed to justify it. I personally feel a great resolution for any salesperson this year, you know, and we train a lot of salespeople, so I see this firsthand, okay? And I don't have any numbers for anybody, so it's arguably fairly anecdotal. But one thing I would be doing is, for all of those more complex, those more strategic sales that you're conducting, I would be scrutinizing the decision-making unit and really, really checking closely whether or not I'm engaged with all of the key people or not. And if I haven't, again, maybe it relates to your too hard pile as well, Steve. It's too hard to get in touch with that person or have a conversation with that person. Actually, you know, in this day and age, building consensus inside an organization for the larger sales we conduct, or even, you know, they may be quite small sales, but very strategically important to us, I think is crucial that, you know, we have those conversations. So I think scrutinizing the decision-making unit and, you know, being prepared to, at the end of the day, not just hide behind email either, you know, pick up the telephone and call somebody. They may not be there, okay?
Absolutely.
But nobody told us this job was easy, did they? All right. Sometimes it might mean multiple calls at strange times to catch somebody, or getting an introduction through somebody else in the organisation, your sponsor, your champion, your coach, whichever phrase you choose to use. So I think it's a great one, Prue, and it came up in my thought process about New Year resolutions as well in that respect. So scrutinise your decision-making unit. Have you really, covered off all of the key people you need to speak to? Have you got a clear view of how they're thinking, how they're feeling about things? And if they had to take a vote today, would they vote for you? And if it's a no, it's obvious. Yeah. If it's a I don't know at the moment, count that as a no. Okay. Have you got enough yeses to get the decision?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think it's a great one, Prue. Thanks for raising it. Yeah, really good.
Yeah, good one. And people who've been working on long-term projects before Christmas, they may have forgotten the key dynamics or need to get back up to speed. So take a step back and look at those big projects. Have I engaged with all the key people? Do I know all the key people? I think it's a really good point. So we're up to 7, I think, so far.
Yeah.
So, so Prue, have you got an 8th for us?
I have, actually. One of the things that we know in sales, and I echo what you said, Jonathan, it's not an easy job, but it's fun, isn't it? I mean, nobody got into sales because it's easy. You get into sales because you like to be challenged.
I love it.
It's dynamic. Customers are also different. So I think one of the things I thought about is a New Year's resolution about what am I going to do to step outside my comfort zone this year?
Right.
Because you have to grow as a person as well. You have to grow because you're always going to get an increased target. You're always going to get a great competitor that comes along and steals your thunder. You're always going to get budgets are tough. There's always going to be something that challenges you every year. So I think one of the things is, where am I going to step outside my comfort zone? And mine is definitely, I need to pick the phone up more. I know it's the right thing to do, but I still find it, even after all these years, kind of just makes me a little bit nervous. And I get a great result when I do it. So, I am going to pick the phone up more this year. And even if I just get opportunity to leave a voicemail, that's no bad thing. So
absolutely.
Yeah, step outside your comfort zone, your own personal development. And I think that will really help you start to have an opportunity to get the ever increasing target that you're going to get, regardless of what else happens.
I think that's a great one. And Jonathan and I had a call before Christmas with a guy who calls himself the telephone assassin. And we're hoping that he'll be actually on the podcast as a future guest.
He was a great guy.
His whole approach to the telephone and recognizing the telephone is fantastic. His name's Anthony Steers, and we're hoping to get him as a guest on the show. But really resonate with that. I've been in sales for 35 years, and I still get nervous picking up the phone.
But hey, I think it's just, nerves are good.
It's just human nature for many of us.
Yeah, but nerves are good. Yeah. We've learned to channel them, and fortunately, after all of these years, and I still get nervous. There's lots of things that still make me nervous, but that's good. I think that's how you keep your edge. I think that's how you do your best prep. I think you make your best call, when that happens.
And I think it shows you care as well if you're nervous. It shows it matters, I think. Yeah. Well, on that note, mine's the 9th one. I think, again, it's great how these all kind of dovetail together, really. And mine really relates a bit to what you just said, Prue, in that it doesn't matter how busy I am. It doesn't matter how many training courses I've got booked in, how many customers I'm working with. There's always time to prospect. Yeah. There is always time to prospect. And again, it might be something that's on my too hard pile sometimes, but just recognizing that I have got a half an hour here, or I'm in a hotel, or I'm in an airport or whatever, there's time to do a bit of prospecting. It's a planned activity, and recognizing that if we don't find the time to prospect, that even though we might be super busy right now, down the road, whether it's 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, whatever your sales cycle is, there's problems ahead. If we don't find that time to always keep prospecting, and recognizing that prospecting is really the key step for all the good stuff that follows afterwards, all the stuff that we've been talking about today, the big account management, the time management. If we don't prospect, we're going to have nothing to work on, guys. And I've never known a business, I've never run a business, never worked with a business where all their salespeople are fully occupied with all the leads they get from marketing. Ever.
Correct. Never,
I'm sorry if you're a
marketer.
Yeah, I mean, the leads they generate is vital, of course, but salespeople always need to generate their own leads. So there's always time to prospect, no matter how busy we are. And again, that's something I'm trying to make sure I fit into my working environment in 2024.
And I think
so, guys, we've got
back.
9. So let's
and
make it a round number.
I've got a 10th for you in a minute, Steve. But just, I think to add one more comment to what you've just said there, and it relates back to something Prue said, which was, what I have a look back at your calendar, right? So have a look back at the last 3 months and check, what prospecting did you actually do? Now, it may just have been ad hoc, that 5 minutes here, that 10 minutes there. You may not have recorded it in your calendar, but how much did you actually do? Okay. And did you use a range of mechanisms? I think we then go back to podcast 1, don't we? Which was originally around this topic.
Yeah, we do.
So if you want more detail, go back to podcast 1. There's 1 or 2 more ideas.
Go back and listen to the first show. Yeah, absolutely.
Which is absolutely great. So I've definitely got another one that was on my list. I'm struggling to make it connect beautifully to what's been said.
That's okay.
But it would just be an observation and something that I know I can always improve upon, and I think a lot of us probably can if we're honest with ourselves. And that's really formulating a great next action. Okay, so there should always be a next step. Right. Somebody once told me that all great salespeople have a healthy or even an unhealthy obsession with the next step. And what does a great next step looks like? There's probably 3 criteria. Okay, could be wrong. There may be more than this, but for me, any next step should move the customer closer to selecting your brand, okay, your company. It should almost certainly progress the customer in your sales process and in their buying process. And in some way, it should involve the customer. If the customer's involved, comes with you, meets deadlines, for me, great buying signal. So I think, take a look at all of those opportunities, whether it's your Q4, quite frankly, Q2, Q3, wherever you are in your fiscal year, look at your opportunities and check off those actions. Are they really strong? Do they fulfill those 3 criteria? I think that would be a great resolution, I think, for a lot of salespeople. And it will certainly be on my list this year. So that would be one I definitely wanted to make sure I included. Maybe one of you is clever enough to link it back to something we've already said today. Or too many mince pies.
So what happens next?
Yes.
Yeah, I've given them up. Right. Well, we've got 10. Have you got another one, Prue, at all, or have we run out of our list?
No, I have got one, Steve, and it's like a kind of final one.
Somebody's dog's going bonkers in the background. I don't know who's.
Oh, it's probably mine. I'm just gonna push the door up. I do apologise.
Okay, go ahead. And just to show this is a real live recording.
It certainly is. Sorry, listener.
I think mine was one of my resolutions is not to make too many. I think one of the things we can do is set out with all of this thinking time over Christmas and the New Year break, and we set ourselves up to fail by making too many resolutions. We fall at the first hurdle with a couple of them, and then we revert back to our comfort zone and back to tight. So, absolutely. So don't make too many. Make ones that are going to have an impact and that you're going to stick at. If you have some success and feel some progress, it encourages you to continue to do that. So my 4th resolution, Steve, is don't make too many, which is a bit counter, but you know me.
Fantastic, yeah. Less is more.
Less is more. Or as I once said by mistake, more is less. And that's true as well. More is less. Absolutely.
Yeah, I guess
wasn't
it
wrong. Yeah. So another Stephen Covey's habits, I believe. Thank you, Mr. Covey.
Yeah, really that's good. Right. Yeah. So Jonathan, Prue, thanks a lot. That's a great list of 10 New Year's resolutions for salespeople and sales managers. With your bonus 11th resolution, Prue, not to make too many being great advice. And thanks to you, the dear listener, for joining us for our first Luxury of Choice show in 2024. Jonathan, Prue and I will be back in 4 weeks where our topic will be the role of product demonstrations in the sales process. However, don't forget also I will be back in 2 weeks' time for the mid-month interview show where my guest will be Debbie Airy, who is a sales director in the Halma Group, a leading FTSE 100 company with a number of businesses operating in specialist technology sectors. Now, if you enjoy the show, then don't forget to subscribe to it using your favourite podcast app. That way you won't miss an episode, and you might even get to hear the show a bit earlier than non-subscribers. And we would love you to leave us a review, which does help us in lots of mysterious ways. And finally, a reminder that we do want to hear from you. If you have a question for any of us, or you would like us to discuss a topic on your behalf, then please email the show at podcast@georgejames-training.com. That's podcast@georgejames-training.com. And if you would like your question to be anonymous, then please make that clear in your email. Once again, Happy New Year and bye for now.